Hi there, my name is Tom. I'm a maritime English teacher on School Ship Gone in Stavanger, Norway. Today I'm going to continue on with Unit 5A. If you didn't catch my last video, I went through exercises 1 and 2. I took quite a bit of time trying to go through the different ship types by relating it to the different cargo types. So if you didn't catch that video, probably a good idea that you go through that first. But today I'm going to continue with exercises 3 and 4, and then I'm going to finish up the unit with exercises 7 to 13. If you want to download the workbook, I've taken these pages and made a link for it where you found this video on YouTube. You can link up to my Google Drive and download a copy of these pages or the entire workbook. As well, if you want the PowerPoint that I used in this video, you're free to download that as well. I provided a link. And as well, if you have not downloaded the Marang Learning Tool or Marang Plus, you're really missing out. It's free software that you can get on your computer, take with you to sea, and study maritime English as much as you want. Okay, let's go on to exercise 3. In this exercise, do a little bit of review of last time, but some new words coming up as well. Try to pick the best definition for these terms. Hopefully some of them you know, some of them might be new, but pick only one right answer, A, B, or C, and we'll give you 2 minutes, 2 minutes to pick the right answer for these terms.
Horror and moral terror are your friends.
Great. Okay, let's go and get the answers. I hope you thought this was pretty easy, but it's not as simple as it looks. Bill of lading, is that a document information about a cargo? Charge for transporting cargo or a destination? Well, it's a document. Here's what it looks like. I'll show you in a second a little bit more about what it looks like, but a document with information, that's just the half or not even the third of it. Okay? A bill of lading is one of the most important documents in the shipping industry. It's abbreviated to a BL, and it is an evidence. When you're shipping something, you have evidence, a piece of paper that shows that you have a contract of carriage between a shipper, that's you, and a carrier, somebody that's going to do the transportation for you. So that's your contract that it's going to be shipped. Not only that, it's issued by the carrier as a receipt of goods that they have actually taken on board or received the goods from you. If somebody contests, for example, that I don't know what happened to the cargo, the goods, you can show this piece of paper as a receipt that you have given it from you, so you're not still holding the goods. All right, and it's also a document of title. A document of title, which means that you or the owner of the document owns the goods. So this can be transferred to the receiver, known as the consignee, and they can pick up the goods with this document as proof that they are the rightful owners or receiver of the goods. So it's got actually three different functions, as well as giving information about the cargo. You can see here on the actual bill of lading, this is a draft. Here you do have information about the cargo. This cargo here is face mass with an ear loop. And I'm just going to go through this really quick. This is just a typical bill of lading. But you have the shipper. These are the people that are sending the cargo. This is from China. And then the consignee, who are receiving the cargo. And these people are Bolyar Medica in Moscow, Russia. Okay? And the notified party, these are the people who represent the shipping company in Moscow to be notified when the cargo arrives. And then we can see the voyage number, the actual number for the bill of lading. And this is the carrier. This is the transportation company that will hire the vessel or book passage for the containers on board a ship. Right? They actually have the ocean vessel, the Zhonghai, and the port that the cargo is being loaded on, Wuhan, and where the port of discharge, where the cargo is being dropped off, Katka. Okay, and so here it's very interesting to see the marks and numbers of containers. If we look at a typical container, here's a Maersk container. Each container is identified by the owner, and these three letters here represent Maersk. And here we can see GLD stands for the Gold Container Shipping Company. And then you have this one letter is product group code U. We can see we have the same product group code here on both of these cargoes. And then the registration number of the container. And so here we have the 6 digits, and here you have 6 digits followed by the third check digit. This is 1 digit. Okay, so you can connect up your bill of lading to the actual container that's carrying the cargo. Great. And then, of course, the gross, the total weight of the cargo. And Terra, you can see here, when we're looking at the container, the maximum weight of the container, which is the actual weight of the container, 3,880 kilos. And the payload, how much weight the cargo can be. And then the cubic capacity of it. And you can see here is given in kilograms and pounds. And so this cargo is weighing 8,225 kilograms, and it's also measured in CBM, which is cubic meter. That is the typical measurement for shipping in containers, cubic meter. Okay, great. Well, that was a bill of lading. Let's look at number 2, warehouse. What is a warehouse? Area for storing cargo on a ship? No. That's what we call a hold. A shop? No. Well, in America we have warehouse, but it's spelled different. Building for storage? Yes, that's what it was. C, a building for storage. And here's what one looks like inside here. Outside, you have a storage area. And generally you have a chain link fence and razor wire or barbed wire on the top. Inside, keeping it safe from the elements, is a warehouse with different stacks and shelves in there. Okay, number 3, quay. You pronounce it quay, not quay, but quay. Is that a place for unloading ships, a type of bridge, or a platform over the water? It is a place for unloading ships. Well, sorry, it's not as easy as that. It's actually a wharf. A wharf, and Americans, we say a dock is the actual structure on the shore of a port or the bank of a river or canal where ships may dock to unload or unload cargoes or passengers. So inside of a wharf or on a dock, you'll see quays. And quays actually, technically, is part of a riverbank or coastline which has been modified so ships can dock parallel to the shore. So down here you can see, for example, a boat moored at a quay in Poole, England. So in this picture here as well, we have a quay, but we also have piers. Piers are structures jutting out into the water, which you can moor onto. You have different berths, and berths are numbered mooring locations on the quayside or on the pier. And a wharf will include as well the warehouses or other facilities necessary for handling ships. So the main term for an area where you unload ships is a wharf, or in America we call it a dock. And in a wharf you'd have quays and piers that you tie up to, you moor your ship to. Complicated, I know. Well, let's go to the next question, number 4. A crane. Is crane equipment for lifting or lowering heavy things? A machine for moving cargo to a storage area, or a type of package? It's A. Equipment for lifting and lowering heavy things. And so in a port you'll see different types of cranes. Here is a typical container crane. It's either a container crane, or it's also known as a container handling gantry crane. Why do we say gantry crane? Because you can see these rollers at the bottom where it can roll horizontally along the quayside to get better access to the cargo holds on board a ship. So it's on wheels, that's why it's called a gantry. And then portainer is actually a specific. I have a picture of a portainer down here. It's made by one manufacturer. It's trademarked. You see them around at different ports, but that actually is a portainer. So container crane is a large dockside gantry crane found at most container terminals for loading and unloading container ships. You also have a pure gantry crane that you see in dry docks, and it as well is on rollers. And you can see here you have cranes that go across the dry docks so that they can get access going both fore and after the ship and starboard to port, so they can get at any part of the vessel while it's in dry dock. So you should know the term gantry crane. And then you have a derrick. What's the difference between a crane and a derrick? Well, you can see here it's kind of a combination of a crane and a derrick. A derrick has a mast which can be lowered and raised. That's basically the essential difference. Here we have the portainer. It's a crane. It's pretty much can roll, but you can't really lift up and down the mast. But a derrick you can. Alright, so stevedore, number 5. Is that a man's name? Steve? No, stevedore. A docker or a ship's crewman? Well, it's not a ship's crewman, and Steve, that's a man's name. It's B, a docker. Stevedore is also known as a dock worker or longshoreman. And they are the workers, not the crewmen, but the workers quayside that help to load and unload vessels when they are in port. Now, that job has changed a lot over the years. In the days before containerization, you had trucks coming in with cargo, and it had to be unloaded off the trucks and then loaded onto the vessel or the crane. And then once it got off the crane, it had to be stowed on board the vessel. But now with containerization, the container goes right onto the truck, it goes right lifted onto the crane, and the crane puts it right onto the ship in the right bay, tier, or row that it belongs. But still, you would think you would have to have somebody in the crane running it as well. You'd have to have people in the ports moving containers around in the port while they're waiting for the ships to come in and out. Well, that's not the case so much anymore. I'm going to show you a picture of the port of Rotterdam, and here everything is automated. The only humans working are in the cranes taking them containers on and off the ship. Otherwise, it's all run by computer.
Giant robots. Almost every machine you now see is controlled by computer. And these high-tech titans' output is staggering. Each loading crane can deadlift 40 tons. Below, the container's chariot awaits. Called an Automated Guided Vehicle, or AGV, this car has a mind of its own. Literally. There's no driver because an onboard navigation system regulates its position, direction, even speed by a magnetic grid set into the tarmac. Once the container is loaded on the AGV's back, top-mounted infrared eyes ID the container and instantly roll the load to a preset stacking location, where another giant robot takes over. The stacking crane. Towering 5 stories in the air, this mega machine can grab, haul, and drop the equivalent of 5 school buses. Like the AGV, she takes orders from no man. Every move along her magnetic track is totally pre-programmed, just like the other 37 cranes. And 370 robotic cars.
Wow, well, that is Rotterdam on the cutting edge of technology today. I'm not saying it's that way in every port in the world, but that's the trend we're going with Google Cars, for example, for passenger travel. Okay, sack. Was that a type of box, a type of bag, or a room? Well, it's not a room, and it's not a box, it's a bag. Here you have a sack, but I have some other containers that we have cargo in, so let's get through that. Well, here is a bag, and you could have rocks or lots of different things in a large bag. You see it's got loops for the crane to pick it up. Here is what's called a bale, and for example wool or cotton, any kind of dry cargo that you want to have wrapped up and protected from the elements, we call a bale. For example, bale of hay. Here it's not a box. This down here is a box, a cardboard box. This is a wooden box which we call a crate. And then here, yes, a cardboard box. And then here for liquid cargo, packaged, we have, for example, wine comes in barrels, oil comes, well, not in barrels, but oil these days comes in drums. And then just the bottom here, we have metal or wire comes in coils. This is just a few of the different types of containers that break bulk or dry cargo comes in. Great. Let's go to number 7, pallet. We've talked about that before. A portable platform for cargo. Yes, it's not a type of box. That's a crate and a container. There's lots of different containers. So here is a pallet. Different types of containers will go on a pallet. You can have boxes, you can have crates, bags, sacks. Yeah. But then if you're going to lift up a pallet, you use a pallet jack around in a warehouse. But then if you want to move it around more than just by hand, you would have a forklift truck, which is a long distance transporter, a vehicle for moving pallets. Yes, so here you have the forklift truck, which will move pallets around a warehouse as well, over longer distances or even farther than that. For example, out to the storage area outside. And then a hold. We talked about that as well. A hold is not a lift, it's not crew quarters, it's an area on board a ship for storing cargo. So it's actually on board a ship, and here is a nice picture of the hold in a container ship. And now you can see that the containers go all the way down to the keel or to the tank top of the ship and stacked way almost the same height of the superstructure. Great. And then number 10, hatch. What is a hatch? A room on board, a door in the deck, or a ladder? Well, it's B, a door in the deck. We call it a hatch or a hatchway, but sorry, it's not as easy as that either. It's a door in the deck, yes. Here is a hatch in a deck to go down below, or you have a hatch in a bulkhead, which would be a door, a vertical door. Okay. As well, you have cargo hatches over cargo holds, and here we have a nice picture of a bulker again, and you can see the sliding cargo hatches going over the cargo holds. And don't confuse a hatch with a manhole. You can see manholes have got bolts and nuts screwing them down. Here we've got over 20 of them, and that are openings into enclosed spaces that generally do not have oxygen. Those are quite dangerous areas on the ship, and it takes quite a long time to open up a manhole, where a hatch, you'll see, is generally a watertight closing mechanism, both for cargo and for people. Great. Well, those are our questions. Now we have exercise 4. We need you to put the words that we just had, the 10 words, in the correct sentences. 2 minutes, go for it.
Yeah, man, I'll tell you what, that dang old internet, man, you just go on there and point and click, 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 click. It's real easy, man.
I said I want the truth.
You can't handle the truth.
I said I want the truth.
You can't handle the truth.
I feel good. I knew that I wouldn't. So good, so good. I got you. Wow!
Yeah, little James Brown. Okay, let's take this puppy home. Exercise 4, let's put the right words in there. Number 1, open the escape hatch. Yes, and get out. Number 2, what driver is moving the cargo? The forklift truck driver is moving the cargo to a storage area outside. Put all the boxes onto a pallet. Yeah. Embark. Embark. What is embark? Embark means to board. That's a word. So embarkation is to board, to get on a ship. Disembark is the antonym or the opposite, which means to get off a ship. So embark at birth number 31. You can have that, but it's key number 31, and then on that key it would probably be birth A or B or C, which is numbered. The delivery date on the, I would say, bill of lading, yes, is the 5th of November, the expected date of delivery. And then my father was a stevedore, and I am one too. Not for very much longer, it doesn't look like. The ship's hold is clean, ready for loading. We must use a crane or a derrick to lift the heavy box, and each bag or sack or of rice weighs 200 kilos. Take the cargo from the ship and store it in warehouse number 3. Great! Okay, let's jump on to the next two exercises, exercise 7 and 8. And here we're going to, for the first time, do a little bit of grammar. The structure of comparatives and superlatives. Don't let this throw you off. It's just talking about when we compare something or say something is the best or the worst or whatever. So we take a piece of candy here. It's small. Candy's usually small. If we can compare the size over with this piece here is smaller. So we take the suffix er at the end of the adjective to denote less, comparing two things or more. Okay, and superlative is the absolute best, absolute worst case. So when we're going to compare small, smaller, the very smallest, we use est at the end of an adjective as a suffix. But this is not always the case. There's a couple rules that come up that we're going to go through, but it's the general idea that we use for small one-syllable adjectives. Let's see what you know already. Exercise 7, answer these questions. What's the opposite of more? To complete these sets of words here. Blank, better, best. Which is correct? More dangerous or dangerouser? 4, complete this set of words. Bad, blank, blank. And then exercise 8, study the sentences and then identify the comparatives and the superlatives. Like I say, comparatives is an adjective that is comparing two things. A superlative is an adjective form, which is saying this is the best, the worst. Okay, great. 1 minute, here we go.
Well, we're waiting. Come on, bark like a dog for me. Bark like a dog.
Woof, woof. Okay, great. Let's go on now. So, exercise 7, what is the opposite of more? Of course, that's less. More of something, you have less of something. But those two, more and less, are the comparative form. And then the superlative, when you want to say, yes, I have more, but he has the most, and then I have less, but she has the least. But then what is the absolute form? That one's tricky. What are we actually talking about here? Well, I have more, she has most. We're talking about much or a lot. I tend to say with American, I have a lot, but he has more, she has the most. And less, and she has the least. What's the absolute? Little. So I have little, he has less, she has the least. Okay, great. So now complete this set of words. Blank, better, and best. So he's better, she's the best, I am good. Right? We call these the irregular comparatives and superlatives. So it's a good idea to learn these because they don't follow the general pattern, the general rules. So let's look at the next one, 3. Which is correct? More dangerous or dangerous-er? Well, here comes the first rule I want you to pick up. When you have 3 vowels, vowels are when you have when you have 3 syllables, excuse me. When you have 3 syllables in a word, it's when you have 3 vowels. So here's danger, us, and when that's the case, you never want to put the suffix er on the end of the word. You have to use more. Okay? So here's a general rule. Adjectives with 3 or more syllables, you use the syllable and you just add more to it. You never put er. So Russian grammar is more difficult than English. My sister is much more intelligent. I find math lessons more enjoyable. And the older you get, the more irritating you become. I hope that's not true. But all 4 of these words, difficult, 3 syllables, intelligent, 4, enjoyable, that's actually 4, irritating, that's 4 there. So when you have multiple syllables, don't add er, just put more. Okay, complete this set of words. Bad, it was really bad, but the situation before that was worse. And I'm expecting the next situation to be the superlative form is the worst. This is our last set of irregular superlative and comparatives. So I would really recommend that you learn good, better, best, bad, worse, and worst, and these 2 up here. Much, more, and most, little, less, and least. They're the tough ones to remember in English. Okay, let's study these sentences. Identify the comparatives and superlatives. Well, the first sentence, move the heaviest pallets first. And you need to really focus on this heavy, right? Because heavy is spelt with a Y at the end. And 2 syllables, heavy, adjectives ending in Y. You have to change the Y, take it away, and put I-E-R. So for example, happy goes to happier. Easy, easier. Lucky, luckier. So you have to remember that little spelling rule when you add an ER when you have Y at the end. Okay, number 2, labor costs are higher, right? So that's our comparative. The first one was a superlative, heaviest. Labor costs are higher, that's comparing, than equipment. Our cargo is more dangerous, so that's the comparative than usual. And 4, it's the least safe choice. So there you go, least safe choice, but we have to do it. That was a superlative as well. And lash those pallets more securely. That's comparative, more securely. Okay, great. Well, let's put this theory into practice. We have exercises 9 to 11 on page 86. What you're going to do, exercise 9, put in the comparative form in the adjective and then add than. Okay, exercise 10, you're going to put the superlative form of the adjective in the brackets. And exercise 11, you have to decide, is it the comparative? If you need than, you need to put that in there if it's necessary, or superlative form. You decide which is the one that fits in best, but don't forget about the 2 rules that we just talked about. Let's take 3 minutes to fill those 3 exercises out. Here we go.
This can't be happening, man. This isn't happening.
and this one time at band camp,
Get away from her, you bitch!
Every man carries a circle of hell around his head like a halo. Every man has to go through hell to reach his paradise.
All right, so exercise 9. Complete the sentences using the comparative form of the adjective in the brackets plus than. So 1, this is harder than. So with the comparative, you add er to a simple one-syllable adjective. Harder than I expected. A little cargo is, this is an irregular, so good. A little cargo is better, is the comparative form. Better than nothing. The hold is now colder than it was before. Great. Exercise 10. Complete these sentences using the superlative form. So we want the best, the worst, highest. So labor is our highest. And then again, it's one syllable adjective. So we just add est. And here, bad, that again is an irregular. So the baddest problem, the badder problem, no, it's irregular. The worst problem in port is stowaways for the superlative form. So the Olympic Voyager is the fastest. There we go. And again, good is irregular. Only the best, not the goodest, but the best stevedores work here. And explosives are the, we had this before, most dangerous cargo. Great. Well, let's go on to exercise 11. And in this exercise, you had to decide was the comparative or the superlative form that you wanted. Let's go ahead. A, why do you use a crane? B, moving cargo is much, and then here's the adjective, easy. Remember what I said about adjectives that end with y? If you're going to add an er or est, you got to get rid of the y and add an I, er or est. So moving cargo is much easier with a crane. Great. A, which is the, and the adjective is dangerous. Remember when we talked about 3 syllables, it's not dangerous-er or dangerousest, it's more or most. So which is the most dangerous cargo you handle. That would be the superlative. B, poisons are dangerous, but explosives are more dangerous than poisons. Great. A, here is little, and that again is one of our irregular adjectives. So I have a little, she has less, and he has least, or the least. So who gets the least or least money? A stevedore or deckhand? B, a deckhand usually gets less money than a stevedore, so a comparative form there. Is that true? A deckhand usually gets less money than a stevedore? Well, yeah, actually it's true. In some countries, stevedores demand higher than average pay. For example, in California, our longshoremen, that's what we call it in America, they were on strike for about 9 weeks, and products were just not available across a good portion of the states. They were all bottleneck import because the stevedores wouldn't move them. They were striking for higher wages. So that means cargo handling costs go up. Steps have been taken by shipping companies and port authorities to rationalize the whole process of loading and unloading and storing cargo. Changes include spread of containerization, much more than it used to be, which mechanize handling of bulk goods much easier and cheaper. And in many ports, like the video I just showed you, computers and robotics are taking over the process, completely getting the stevedores or longshoremen out of the loop. So handling cargo is actually often part of your job as a seafarer or mariner, especially on ro-ro vessels. It's the mariners which are driving the vessels, driving the vehicles on and off the ro-ro. But especially working in harbors and rivers and canals, mariners are trained in cargo handling procedures, and they learn how stowage of cargo affects stability of a ship. And in some places and under some conditions, the work of loading and unloading is done by you, by mariners, not stevedores. And it's normal practice to pay mariners extra for doing this. Right, well, if you want more exercises to deal with the comparative and superlative forms, I've added a link on the YouTube page. So just click on that link. It'll take you to a website where I found the grammar, which you can read for yourself. But also at the bottom of the page, there's links to exercises for doing both the comparative and superlative form. I think you'll like that. Right, let's go on to the next two and last exercises, exercises 12 and 13. Here we have reading. Exercise 13, you're going to read the sentences and then put them in the correct order. I've given you the first one already. Lorries take sacks of cocoa beans to the quay. But then read the rest of the sentences, 6 sentences, and decide which order they should go in. But before you do that, look at exercise 12. Do you know what perishable cargo is? Do you know what fragile cargo is? Well, I'm going to give you 5 minutes. I'll tell you afterwards, but look it up first in a dictionary and then try to think of 3 examples of each for dry cargo, for dangerous cargo, but then perishable and fragile cargo as well. Okay, 5 minutes. Here we go.
My advice to you, start drinking heavily. Thanks. I needed that. gotta work on my game. No. Don't think of it as work. The whole point is just to enjoy yourself. What a shame that a few bad apples have to spoil a good time for everyone by breaking the rules.
Now listen up, you nauseating pile of blubber! Oh boy, is this great!
Great, that was a little bit of Animal House there for you. Great, so let's go to exercise 12. Dry, dangerous, perishable, and fragile cargo. Well, examples of dry cargo, we've talked about dry cargo a lot, so hopefully you were thinking of break bulk, neo bulk, standardized, or dry bulk. One more time, break bulk is when it comes in a container, like a box, or a crate, or a coil, and neo bulk is when it can roll on or roll off a ship, or lift it on and lift it off. Standardize can be containers, so cargo that goes in a crate, goes onto a pallet, then goes into a container, and then off onto a lorry or a truck. And then we have the dry bulk. So if you try to think of different types of cargoes in those different categories, let's just look at bulk. When we talk about dry bulk, there's actually two major categories, major and minor bulks. So do you know what is the top 5 major bulks being transported around the world today? Well, you'd have a clue if you look at our consumption of what we actually use. To heat our homes, there's a lot of countries still using coal to fire up furnaces to heat up individual homes, but also for power plants. Grain to make breads and other things for people to feed the masses. Iron ore for building infrastructure, and bauxite. That actually is the basis used for making aluminum. And then the last one, phosphates, that is a basis for fertilizers, for artificial fertilizers. And then the minor bulks also being transported a lot. You have lumber and sugar, cement, steel, and minerals. So there's 10 examples of different dry cargo just in the major and minor dry bulks. Not even talking about break, neo bulk, or standardized. Great. And then dangerous cargo, well, we classify that as cargo liable to explode or ignite if not handled with care. So I came up with a list of the top 5 most dangerous, and it couldn't really find anybody else that came up with one, but I'm just thinking about recent news stories. We had this problem with damp ore cargo. Between 2010 and 2011, there was 44 deaths of seafarers in just 39 days. There were 4 ships that capsized because of this problem of damp ore cargo. Basically, it's nickel or iron ore that's got a high moisture content, and when the ship hatches are not waterproof, it leaks, water leaks into the cargo hold, the ore can liquefy. And if you know anything about the free surface effect, the liquefied ore will just splash and go over the cargo hold and just tip the ship over, capsize it, and drastically affecting the ship's stability and leading to accidents and death. So the damp ore has been in the news a lot as one of the most dangerous cargoes, and they're starting to build specialized ships just for damp ore because there's been so many accidents. And also you have this DRI, which has been also a problem coming up. It's called direct reduced iron pellets, and this product, it becomes wet again if a hatch leaks or whatever. It can significantly overheat. They're like little pellets that just light on fire, and then they start emitting hydrogen gas. So there's been some accidents back in 2004, a ship called Ethan, and before that Amadas in 2003. It actually had to be sunk by the French authorities with the cargo and the bunkers on board because it was such a hazard. And then, of course, explosives. That's probably one of the most dangerous cargoes. It's led to the 3rd most tragic accident in history with the most fatalities. This was in 1917, the Mont Blanc Halifax explosion. This happened in Nova Scotia, Canada. So huge explosions. A French munitions ship, Mont Blanc, collided with a Norwegian ship, Emo, in the narrow parts of the Halifax harbor. The Mont Blanc's 40-man crew, they all escaped, but minutes later she exploded. About 2,000 people on shore and in Halifax were killed by the explosion and the falling debris and fires and collapsing buildings. Over 9,000 were injured, particularly by flying glass. So it's considered the largest accidental explosion of conventional weapons to date. And since we're a school ship in Norway, I just have to add one of the worst accidents in Norwegian history happened in the Bergen Harbor in 1939. This Dutch vessel Verboda had 273,000 pounds of explosives. She caught fire in the middle of the Bergen Harbor at about 8:39 in the morning. And of course it was a humongous kaboom, and 158 people, including 98 civilians, were killed automatically. Some almost 5,000 were wounded. 131 houses, which was pretty much the town at that time, were just outright destroyed. 117, so much damage they had to be condemned. So explosives definitely got to be in the top 5. And then, of course, liquid gas, like the liquid petroleum gas or liquid natural gas, if one of those catch on fire, big boom. And chemical tankers are got to be up in one of the top 5 most dangerous cargoes. I'm just throwing it in there. Okay, so then we have those words perishable and cargo. Did you find what perishable means? That means cargo that's liable to go bad without refrigeration. So what kind of cargo do you think would go bad, would spoil, would rot without refrigeration? And again, we call ships or containers or trucks that have refrigeration, they're called reefers. So a reefer can refer to a vessel a container, or a lorry or truck. So what kind of perishable cargoes? Well, in Norway, we have fish, salmon, other types of fish. You have meat, fruit, vegetables, dairy products, and there's a whole bunch more. But the type of things that you have to keep in the refrigerator, of course, is what we call perishable cargoes. And then our last list here, fragile cargo. Fragile, what does that mean? Well, liable to break if not handled with care. So what examples for fragile cargoes did you get? Well, glass, that's a good example. Antiques, old stuff that would break quite easily. TVs, monitors for computers, computers themselves, laptops, cell phones. So this is just a sample of the many different types of fragile cargoes out there. All right, let's finish up with exercise 13. Here the sentences are all mixed up. Let's put them in the right order. So number 1, lorries take sacks of cocoa beans to the quay. And then number 2, stevedores then load the sacks onto pallets. And then 3, the ship's cranes lift the first group of pallets and transfers them into the ship's cargo hold. And then 4, stevedores on the quay put more pallets of cocoa beans in the empty space. And 5, when the ship arrives at its destination, crew and stevedores offload the cargo. And 6, the ship's cranes transfer the cargo from the ship's hold to the dock. And lastly, stevedores use forklift trucks to remove the pallets from the quay to a warehouse. Great. Well, thanks a lot for looking at my video. I'll continue next time with exercises from Unit 5B. Bye-bye for now.